All right, let's dive right into the Guilford County housing market. We're going to dig into all the latest numbers, so whether you're thinking about buying, selling, or you're just curious, you'll definitely want to see what's going on.
So, is a move in the area on your mind? Because if it is, this is for you. The data is telling a really fascinating story right now about where things stand and maybe, just maybe, where they're headed next. Okay, so here is the big puzzle we're going to solve today. You hear all this chatter that the market is cooling off, but then you look at home prices and they just keep going up and up. It feels like it doesn't make sense, right? Well, that's exactly what we're going to unpack. We're going to figure out what's really going on here. First up, let's look at the proof that things are slowing down. And honestly, the data here is pretty undeniable. That absolutely frantic pace we've all been watching for the last few years, yeah, it has definitely shifted down a gear. So check this out. Pending sales for single-family homes are down a whopping 17.5% from last year. Now, pending sales are basically the contracts that buyers are signing right now. They're like a sneak peek into the future. And a drop this big is a major signal that buyer activity has really cooled off.
And that trend follows all the way to the finish line. Closed sales, the actual done deals where keys change hands, are also down by more than 15%. So fewer contracts are being signed and fewer sales are actually closing. The numbers are telling a very consistent story.
And it's not just that fewer homes are selling, they're also just sitting on the market for longer. Last August, the average house sold in 29 days. This year, it's taking 38 days. That's a 31% jump. It tells us that those wild days of a home selling over a single weekend, well, that's becoming the exception, not the rule. So let's just kind of put a pin in this part of the story. Fewer sales are happening, and they're taking longer. That whole sense of extreme urgency is gone. Now, this sounds like it should be shifting into a buyer's market, doesn't it? Well, not so fast. All right, now for the other half of our puzzle. Because despite everything we just saw, prices are not just holding steady, they are still climbing. And this is where the story gets really, really interesting. This is the question that's probably popping into your head right now. I mean, Basic Economics 101 says when demand goes down, prices should follow, right? But with the housing market, well, it's never quite that simple. And here's that paradox right in front of us. The median sales price for a single-family home just hit $369,000. That's an 8.5% jump from last year. So even as the market is clearly tapping the brakes, home values are still accelerating. It's wild. To really understand today's prices, you have to zoom out. After the crash back in '09, prices were at rock bottom. Then we had this long, slow recovery for years. And then, bam, the pandemic surge happened. So what we're seeing now in 2025 isn't some new bubble, it's really just the continuation of a powerful long-term trend. So how do we solve this puzzle of slowing sales but rising prices? The answer, the key, lies in one of the most important things we track in real estate, inventory. Now, before we get into the numbers, let's just quickly talk about what this means. Month supply of inventory is just a fancy way of saying if no new houses were listed, how long would it take to sell everything currently for sale? A low number is a seller's market, a high number is a buyer's market, and somewhere around 4 to 6 months is considered nice and balanced. And would you look at this? Supply is growing across the board. We're now at 2.8 months for single-family homes and a much healthier 3.7 months for townhouses and condos. Now, we're still technically in a seller's market, but the trend is so clear. We are moving toward balance. This means buyers finally have more choices than they've had in years. Okay, this right here is the most dramatic number in this entire report, a nearly 70% jump in the number of townhouses and condos for sale. This is a massive shift. It's a total game changer for anyone in that part of the market, giving them way more options and bargaining power. This table really sums up the two different stories happening at once. You can see prices and time on market are up for everybody, but the key difference is the inventory. The supply of townhouses and condos is just exploding, while single-family home inventory is growing much more slowly, and that helps explain why those single-family prices are holding so strong. Okay, so we've broken down all the data. We've looked at sales, prices, inventory. Now let's get to the most important question. What on earth does all of this actually mean for you? It means that having a good strategy matters again. For buyers, the message is loud and clear. The frenzy is over. You've got more options, you have more time, and you actually have some power to negotiate. For sellers, it means you can't just expect a bidding war anymore. Pricing your home correctly from day one and making sure it looks incredible are absolutely essential to stand out. If you only remember one thing from all this, let it be this. The market isn't crashing, it's rebalancing. Buyer activity has slowed down, prices are staying high because of those long-term gains, and inventory is finally rising. It's just a complex but needed transition period. The big headline is pretty simple. We're watching the market move back towards something a little more normal. It's a market that's going to require more patience, smarter strategy, and a real understanding of the data. So, has the market finally found its balance? Not yet. But for the first time in years, it feels like it's heading in that direction. And that leaves us with the big question. Is this newfound patience just a temporary pause, or is this the beginning of a more stable and sustainable housing reality for Guilford County?